Oh my God, who's joining the Zoom call today?
What? No, what, honey? No, what? What happened?
I don't know. What am I supposed to say, huh?
I, Carly Thorne, hereby request Josh Ovalle for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh, be a guest on the podcast. We miss you.
William Craver would not be happy.
He was fine with it. He said third time's the charm.
Ugh, he entered
And you
the
know
waiting
that William
room.
had something to say about it because obviously I'm going to tell William if me and my ex get back together.
Keep your paws off of him.
He's mine. I
He's
introduced
mine.
you.
I don't give a fuck. That doesn't matter. Dibs don't exist.
Lauren thought we were crazy when we were like, we both want him secretly.
I know.
What did you guys need help with, actually?
Do we sound okay?
You guys sound fine, yeah.
It was pretty crackly with Summer McKean.
No.
Yeah.
Danny, you're just like Dylan Jordan.
No, literally, I was gonna say that.
I don't even know who that is, guys.
You're just like Dylan Jordan.
I need to look it up. I need to look it up. The pickup pattern, because it matters.
Pickup
Pickup pattern. It's like picking up girls.
Oh, the pattern. It's like asking someone to download the pattern.
Oh my God, I miss William.
Oh my God, me too. Remember when we asked him if he would download the pattern?
Oh, can the podcast just be us interviewing him every single week?
What if we got William to join the podcast?
Can you imagine us two and then William?
Dude, that's the dynamic you want to hear.
That's the perspective you need.
Danny?
With William, you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the episode went well. I need to wait. I'm gonna go on the Blue Yeti website. So yeah, talking to it from the Blue Yeti logo side.
Do you hate women? You hate
No,
you
not
hate
at all.
women?
Mm-mm.
You just enter the waiting room.
Go. Okay, bye guys.
Hello.
Hey,
Hi, how are you?
I don't know if you saw the
I
other
figured it out.
human in this call. We were having my boyfriend help us with our microphones.
I love that.
Yeah.
I can't with that. I have no clue how to do any of that stuff. We were recording earlier. That's why I was running over. We were recording our podcast earlier. My producer was like, my camera doesn't work. Can we use your YouTube camera? And I was like, yes, it does. It stops recording every 20 minutes. I don't know why.
Welcome back to the Internet is Dead podcast, also known as the Josh Ovalle. Please be a guest on my podcast. I'm Samira, and I'm joined by my co-host Brittany. And today we were talking to a special guest, Carly Thorne, also known on YouTube as uncarley.
Hello.
Carly is a YouTuber and a stand-up comedian. You might know her from her celebrity book club videos where she reads and analyzes celebrities' favorite books, and reads books written by famous people. And she also has videos where she does deep dives into like different celebrities, fandoms, internet trends, and all that. We're really excited to talk to you because I feel like your videos obviously align pretty closely with our whole like purpose of our podcast of like analyzing the internet and stan culture and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm super excited to chat. It's my favorite thing to talk about. I love talking about stuff like this, and feels like it's like not a wide depth of knowledge, but it's like a deep depth of knowledge where it's like the people that know and care know.
Do you want to just talk about like why and how you started making videos and posting on YouTube?
Totally. I never thought it was something I wanted to do, but I loved and love YouTube still. Like it's just, I really feel like I'm 24, so I feel like I was really, to me it feels like the golden age of YouTube when I was growing up, of like the Brit Crew and Tyler Oakley, and just like
Yeah,
it was culture. It was awesome. Like I'll rewatch those videos now and be like, the vibes are immaculate. So I always loved it. And I feel like they say like with writing, like you have to read as much as you write, like, and that's how you like know, where it's like I just watched so much YouTube, so much different YouTube over the course of my life.
When did you start
And-
like watching YouTube, and like who were those?
I
like,
can
favorite
remember
people?
like it was Tyler Oakley was the first
Yeah.
one for me.
Yeah.
I met him once and I was so weird. Like now I feel like people kind of can sometimes recognize me because I'm painfully around. I get recognized a lot, but I think it's just because I'm like on the street with a friend who's smoking a cigarette and being loud, and then people like
Yeah.
turn around. Like it's not proportional to my follower count at all. I'm just in the streets. You know what I mean? Like I'm
Yeah.
just around. So it was so weird to Tyler Oakley and like thinking I was being funny. And now I think back to that and I'm like, he was just like, why are you being weird to me? Like, why? I had him like sign a copy of The Great Gatsby I was with, and I was like, it's so random. It's so
That's
random.
really-
And now when you're like in your phase of life, when you're like random is humor, that was where I was
Yeah.
at, and it's unfortunate.
No, but I think
started
that's really
watching-
awesome that you got to decide a copy of the
Yeah,
Greek
it's like now you
I
just
still
have
it
that.
somewhere. I know, I love it. Now I treasure it because I can show it to someone and I'll be like, you'll never guess what this is. Like, there's just no way you're gonna guess what the fuck this
Yeah.
means. I started watching him because he made videos about One Direction, and I really liked One Direction growing up. He made like a video, I don't remember what it was called, but it was basically him going through like a J14 magazine and just making quips and like jokes about it, being like, look at his little ass or whatever. Like, it was that kind of thing. But I was like, oh my God, I love it. Also, very much the time. I must have been like,
J14. I was literally
No, I
talking
was
about
literally
this like
gonna
5 minutes
say,
ago.
Yeah?
when we
How
were
they
in
used
the
to have
intro
like
with
the temporary tattoos, like when Taylor Lautner
Okay.
and Taylor Swift dated. I was just talking about how they had temporary tattoos of them too. Okay, sorry.
oh
Yeah,
no, I
I,
love
like,
that. This is why I
thought that,
want
yeah.
like a magazine. I want more magazines. I'll like
Yeah,
buy a
same.
Cosmo at the grocery store, even though it's never what I want, because
It's
I want
not the same.
I want the vibe of a tiger beat of a J14 or something
Yeah.
like that. That's what I fucking want. But I must have been like 10 or 11, like young, but my parents were very big on like stuff. I couldn't watch anything growing up. Like, I wasn't allowed to watch anything on TV where the kids were smarter than the adults, which is such a stupid rule. Like, how
That's
do you
so funny.
enforce that? I don't know, but I wasn't allowed to watch like Sweet Life of Zack and Cody or anything, but they didn't really understand the internet. So like I could watch that. And then through that, like, that was the collab era. So then I was like watching Troye Sivan and Connor Franta, and then getting in with the Brit
stop.
crew, and like all of it, all good times. Then I
Yeah.
started watching like fashion YouTubers too, like Amanda Steele or whatever.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, she has a baby now.
I know. Oh, I'm in the lore. Like,
That's
I'm on the Reddit
crazy.
threads. I'm
You're
scrolling.
on-
It's crazy. I can't. Well, this is my thing too, because I have friends that are getting married now, and I'm like, that's really young, and it's not. But to me, it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like, her having a baby, I'm like, it's not that young. But to me, I'm like, why? Why?
Yeah.
Well, it's
Why
also
would
crazy
you?
because we like saw her so young, so it seems like she should endlessly be that young. You
Yeah.
know?
Yes, it's very that. I rewatched some of those videos that she made, like maybe like two. In the pandemic, I went through a real phase where I was like, I'm gonna rewatch YouTube videos. I remember she had like really long hair, and as a kid, because I had a pixie cut at 10, that haunted me for years. I just wanted like long 12-year-old girl hair, and I idolized it. And then seeing it as an adult, I'm like, you need to run a brush through it. But when you're 12, like, it's so wild how young she is. And she
Yeah.
looks like a kid. But when I was a kid, I was like, she's like an adult.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
her,
big
I
kids
remember.
always look so old.
No,
too.
Yes.
yeah. I remember watching her and like Maddie Bragg like together because they were like
Yes.
best
And what
friends.
happened? What
Literally,
happened?
what I need to know, but like I remember they both just like looked so old. And like when I was
Yes.
watching them, and I was like, oh my God, these girls are so cool, because I was like 13 and did not look anything like that.
Yeah,
No,
but
it's
then I look
crazy
back,
looking
and
back
do you
at
find
them.
it? You're like, you don't look that different. Like,
No,
I
yeah.
felt like it was the Nile River. Like, I thought it was like the biggest difference ever. And then I
Yeah.
look back and I'm like, yeah, like they had money. And I think also, especially at that time, because online shopping wasn't really a thing. Like, living in LA or New York meant you had access to cool stores, which I just didn't have. Like, because I live in Toronto now, but I grew up in Annapolis, Maryland, where like we didn't have an Urban Outfitters or anything. Like, we had like Aeropostale and Hollister, which were really expensive, and that was really it. Like, we didn't have anything. I didn't have the facilities to get Brandy Melville, and I needed
Yeah.
Brandy Melville or I would have died. Like, that was
Yeah.
all I felt. I wanted it so bad. But like, you look back and you're like, they don't look that different. It's just that like there's the specific like things that a 13-year-old would care about, which is
Yeah.
really weird.
I did also like, because you just mentioned One Direction briefly, and I just
Yeah.
wanted to, because I also watched your video where you were like analyzing One Direction drama and stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was also like my like first like fandom. Like that was how I like I feel like it was that, and like
Me as
YouTube.
well.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I just like yeah, did you have like anyone else that you like had like any other fandoms, or like anyone else that you stand like that, or was it like
I was such a fan. Like, I feel like every point up until maybe my adult life, and even that I'm still like obsessed with things. I'm just not like in the fandom in the same way. I just like loved and love being a fan of things. So One Direction was for sure the first one. That's even like how I found out about fan fiction and all this stuff.
Were
But
you like
also
on Twitter
reading.
for them or anything like that? Or like were you just kind of like watching it like very
I was
like
Tumblr.
intensely?
I was
Okay.
Tumblr. I was on Twitter for Fifth Harmony and 5 Seconds of
Oh my
Summer.
gosh, I was on
I wonder if we met. Which is so funny now because they're kind of like having not like a comeback because everyone's like Fifth Harmony looked insane, but I feel like I'm hearing more about Fifth Harmony now than I have.
Yeah, well, there was like a Fifth Harmony resurgence on TikTok. I don't know if you saw that. Like,
No.
what's his name? Like, I think his name's Nick. Maybe I might be wrong, but like this one TikToker like posted a like TikTok about like their one song like All in My Head and like or with that
Mhm.
audio and was just like being like, oh my God, like this ate, like I'm sorry, like Fifth Harmony,
Yeah.
like and then like it kind of like had a resurgence and like Allie and Dinah both have like acknowledged it and like talked about it and it's like
Ugh.
like together recently and yeah
Yeah, Normani's album is coming out finally, and I'm so excited because I've met them. I was a fan. So I was a fan of 5 Seconds of Summer, Fifth Harmony, One Direction. Also read a lot, so I was like really into like there's a subsection fandom of The Outsiders, the book that you read for grade 7 English in deep on fanfiction.net. Looking at that in a big way. Harry Potter, yikes, but massive, Hunger Games, all of it. Like every part of my life as a teenager was defined in some way or other of like whatever like I was obsessed with at that current time. And I have no regrets. I'm like, what a great way to grow up. I also think that like I see it now with other people. Like if I'm doing research on like a One Direction video or something that's like more modern, like I did a video about the Marauders, so I had to like look at like more modern fan culture. And I'm like, it's so awesome because outside of just like getting to enjoy these things, whatever, you like gain skills. Like I was able to do YouTube because I knew enough about like editing from like edits and other stuff. Do you know, like you like learn skills in such a way. I had like a YouTube channel when I was like 14 for like Fifth Harmony and One Direction and stuff like that, and then people from my high school found it and I shut it down immediately. But like I like learned to learn to do so much stuff from like being a fan. Like I'm sure I don't know these stats, but like I bet like if I like so many writers like started doing fan fiction or like you know like I feel like you learn so much how to do stuff by doing that.
No, like I wrote a fan fiction in like middle school and like now I like have written professionally, but that was like my first thing I really wrote that was a complete thing and it was literally about like Low Anthony and Gen X10 and like all of those YouTubers and it was like crazy, but it got like 100K views on Wattpad.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Like
That's
it was kind of
yeah. I also really loved I loved Connor Franta and Troye Sivan.
Oh, I
Troner.
loved them. Troner.
We kind of got like confirmation of that in the year of our like I feel like people like confirmed it kind of.
Yeah.
Which is wild. But also now as like kind of an adult, it's so funny because like I have friends that like are do like TikTok or whatever, and I have a specific friend who she has like there's a lot of her fans like speculate if she's dating this person or not, and she is. Like it's like the one person that she films with, they're like, I wonder if she's dating him, and I'm like, they are. So now I look back on my life being like at any point when we were like, I wonder if they're dating, and it's like they are. Like they don't want to say it, but they are. Not like I am a Larry denier, even though I want it to be true. I just don't think it's too long. Like it's just simply too long. I just think it would have come out by now.
I like I still like I want to believe it so bad because I was like
want
so
to.
I want to so bad. I would watch Larry edits like religiously. Like I like I can't
race me. Like it's impossible to state. Like it's the culture there.
Yeah.
But I just don't think like I think this is the same way I feel about like there was so many like ships in Fifth Harmony as well of like
Cameron.
Yes. Like if you're in a band and like maybe this is me like bringing my own thing to it because I do feel like especially growing up and like at those ages, like you're just kind of like in love with anyone who's nice to you in a way, and it's not like real, but do you know what I mean? It's like when you're 16, that's kind of how it is. So I feel like with Larry or Cameron or that stuff, like those feelings were real, and then they were broadcast over the internet, and then they got shut down real quick. Especially if you're like a man, and especially like a lot of the One Direction guys, not all of them, but a lot of them came from like working class backgrounds we don't all remember the early 2000s, which were still like the crazy homophobic, like, and even if you're like, it's okay to be gay, I'm not gay, but I mean, it's okay to be gay, but I'm not, like that vibe of like, if you tell a 16-year-old boy he's acting gay and he might be bi, he might be queer, he might be gay, but if you're telling him that on the internet, he might just be like, never, mind. Never
Yeah.
mind. Ever again, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that also was just such a crazy time because like I look back on it now and I'm like, people were also just so mean and awful to Eleanor.
Mhm.
And like that was like who was like Louis' girlfriend, Brittany. I don't know if you like know this, but like
Yeah,
literally
no,
people,
I
yeah,
know.
yeah.
Okay, I was gonna
I'm,
say, I thought you were explaining it to me, and I was like,
Yeah, yeah, no,
don't.
no. I know you know, yeah. But yeah, like people were so like mean to her and like literally attacked her so much online and it was like crazy. Like I like and it's like
It's
insane.
really wild. Like
It's bizarre.
thinking back on it, because especially like they weren't old. Like they feel old when you're 14, but she was like 21. Like she wasn't
Yeah.
old at all. Not that you'd be able to, more equipped to handle it when you're 30s, but I think it's a lot when you're still quite young.
mm,
Um, and all of them just got torn to shreds, like constantly. And even like I always think about that where I'd be like, it would be really weird to be a villain in fanfic. You know what I mean? Like there's always like the
Yeah.
girl who's keeping the boys apart, who's the villain, the slut. Like they're
yeah,
like
that's
she's throwing
crazy.
herself at him. Like it would be so weird to be like, there's fan fiction on Archive of Our Own, where if I type in the tag Carly Thorne, there's like 900 fan fictions, and it's all just me like it's slander against me keeping
Yeah.
apart my ex and his friend or his coworker at some point.
That's
Like
so
it's
interesting.
weird, right?
Yeah. Even like having like fanfic where it's like one of the boys in the band was like the villain or one of the boys in the
Yeah.
band was like the like bad like or like you were like trying to get with Harry but like Zayn like wanted juice and Zayn like
Mm.
was like trying to like keep you guys apart like it was crazy like props for the creativity.
Well, it's like, what is that
Definitely.
also like based in? Like the ones that are like super like common tropes, I guess, like between their relationships. It's like, why are people like just picking this one person and kind of picking on them? Like that's like so sad because
Mhm.
it's just like that's a real human.
It is very strange when you think about like real person fan fiction that way. Because I've been a part of so many fandoms that were fake entirely, and then it's like, hey, words are your paintbrush, go wild. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's no stake in the game. It's weird to think about like people reading it like that it
Yeah.
could be about. That's so strange. And like how you're perceived to this degree, and there's no control over it. And also, like, I mean, you have to imagine like nobody who dated them, as at least when they were in like One Direction or whatever, like was more famous than them. Like there was a certain, I think, an
Yeah.
understanding of being like, I'm not touching this. Like I have enough self-awareness to be like, I'm not getting near this. There was the Taylor Swift and Harry of it all, but even then, like
And
it
she
got
got so attacked for that like
so attacked.
crazy like
And
Haler.
also like it's a PR stunt. Like that was like I think a lot of times my theory, and this is based on nothing. Like I have no connections. This is just my theory that I think there's a lot more PR relationships than we know of. I just think that also it's like casually dating. Like you are dating. It's just also set up by like your management. That's my theory. I just think that a lot of these things are like, especially if you're Taylor Swift, like it doesn't really feel like you can go on dates anyway.
Yeah.
So if somebody's like, hey, Taylor Swift was wondering if you wanted to go on a date, which is wild to be like, why would my manager reach out to tell me this or whatever? But still, like, it would be so strange. But I bet like with Haler, because I think that was proven to be PR, even though they were just like hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like 1989 era. So she was like, you know, it worked out for her fine, obviously. But like
Yeah.
a lot of time, it is interesting that like I don't know, like Camila from Fifth Harmony ended up dating Shawn Mendes and stuff. But like it felt like from the One Direction side, every single famous woman besides Taylor Swift was like, I'm not getting near that until
Yeah.
whatever. Until they broke up, and then like Zayn was with Gigi or whatever. But like in the height of the band, they were like, no, I'm simply not doing that. Also, they're touring all the time, so like you don't have
Yeah.
time.
The like Camila Shawn example is like triggering to hear you say
Yeah.
because you don't even like I just like remember when everyone wanted Camila to go solo and then she was like
Yeah.
hanging out with Shawn Mendes and she did like the I Know What You Did Last Summer song with him and it was like a
Yeah.
whole thing because they were like, oh my God, like and like people like started like villainizing her because she like started doing stuff outside of the group and that was like a crazy time.
Yes. Okay. So, because let me walk you through my experience, because I have experiences with both of them. And famously, I've ran into Shawn Mendes in Mexico City.
Are you
We were
serious? Oh
singing-
my God.
That's
Yes.
insane.
So, um, I saw Fifth Harmony in Toronto once, and Shawn Mendes is from outside of Toronto. he grew up in my partner's like best friend's town, and he would drive around with the windows down listening to his songs, which is a fun fact. People from Pickering, Ontario know that Shawn Mendes would drive around listening to Shawn Mendes songs in his car, windows down.
Wait, that's so
fun.
Which is insane.
That's
I
crazy.
also had a friend who like was obsessed with him and was like a groupie for him when he was like in his MagCon days. Like she saw him like perform in high school gymnasiums.
Yeah.
Because they were so accessible before he was Shawn Mendes. Like he was just accessible. He was like, I'm performing at this high school gym. Who's coming? So this was like when there was like rumors. I think there was like a random photo. This had to be in like 2012, 13, let's say. There's like a photo of Camila and Shawn like sitting out on some parking lot when they were on the tour, kind of like talking. People were like, oh my God, are they going to kiss? Whatever. And then I see them perform in Toronto, and he comes on stage for like the closing song, which I think was Boss, but who's to say? B-O $.
Shawn Mendes on
$sign.
stage for Boss is crazy.
Yes. And I remember we were like, oh my God, like Shawn Mendes is here. Like, I wonder if they're dating. And he was wearing like a boa and like dancing around, which I already love. I'm obsessed. And then they date like later. Great. And then they break up, and I booked a Smart Food commercial. And we filmed this in Mexico City. And when they film commercials in like away places, because they have to like burn ad budget, basically. They have like, okay, for Q5, we have to spend $25,000. And we've only spent $20,000. So if we don't spend $25,000, we'll like lose our budget or whatever. So like, we're going to Mexico City. So we're staying at the Four Seasons. I've never stayed in like a nice hotel in my entire life. And Shawn Mendes is there. And somebody was saying like, oh my God, Shawn Mendes was just like at breakfast at like 8 a.m. So random. And the next day I was like, I could be at breakfast at 8 a.m. Like what if? So I go and he's there, and I'm seated at the table, like 2 down from him. And I'm just watching him the whole time, reading my book, but like literally like I'm a spy. Like
Wait, how did you find out that
like doing this? You know what I mean? Like just like watching.
How did you find out that he like was at that place? Like who, like your friend told you? Or
yeah, there was somebody else who was like on production who was like, oh, I went to breakfast today, and Shawn Mendes was there. But also I didn't see them, but the 1975 were also staying there. And this was before Maddie Healy went on.
I miss celebrities like
Guys,
being at hotels and knowing about it. Like
I know. I'd never had this like happen because obviously I've never stayed at a nice. I could talk about that hotel stay the entire time because I didn't have a credit card at the time, and they were like, "We need a credit card on file," and I was like, "I don't have one," and they were like, "Okay." I'm like, rich people's lives are crazy.
That's
like
insane.
they don't give up. They don't care. Whereas like if I went to like the Marriott and was like, I don't have a credit card, they'd be like, then you can't stay here. Like go, leave. So I'm sitting next to Shawn Mendes. This is after Lyle Crocodile has come out, and he's just talking loudly about how important authenticity is to him as a performer. He has really long curly hair, he's sunburned, and he's wearing like a drug rug. And then he just stands up in the middle of a conversation and then just walks away, but he walks through the garden, like he just walks through the shrubs. And I was like this is what yes. And I was like, this is exactly how I want a celebrity to act. I want to see Shawn Mendes like mowing down shrubbery because he's a free spirit talking about authenticity in his life. And then him and Camila got back together after that trip. And I was like, I am a ship passing in the night with Shawn Mendes.
That's insane. That like honestly, like you saying that, I can like see in my head like him like doing all of that too. Like I can like picture like him wearing that and him like talking about authenticity and then just like walking through the shrubs. Like it's like so like it's in my head. That's crazy.
I know, it's like you don't really understand, and I don't really fathom this either, but I really feel like if I did, I could let go of a lot of like obsession with culture and get a lot more done of just like how every single famous person like kind of sucks. Like their personality isn't good. And that's why when they do have a good personality or someone like Jennifer Lawrence, everyone's obsessed with them for a while and then they eat them alive. Like, because they're not used to, this is my whole like theory about the Wicked movie as well, because Ariana Grande is obsessed with Bowen Yang. And I think that she just is a theater kid who hasn't been around like a comedian with a personality who's like close to a regular person. Because Bowen Yang isn't like that famous. Like he's famous, but he's like a regular person still. I think that's so crazy because I also love Wicked. And Ethan Slater's playing Bach, which is an absolutely insane role. Like you don't see someone playing Bach and get attracted to them. Like there's roles in musical theater that you're like, oh, he was just like Link in Hairspray or whatever. Like there's sexy roles that if you are in musical theater, you see somebody play that and you're like, they're really good. Like that's good. It's not Bach. Like I don't know what happened there, But apparently, this is, again, I'm a fan of Broadway as well. I'm just a professional fan. Ethan Slater, who plays SpongeBob, he booked SpongeBob the musical, like, lead on a Broadway show, like, right out of school. And I don't even think he had representation. So I think he just has something where you're like, if you're in the room with him, we can't understand it because we'll never, like, meet him. We just see pictures of him and we're like, okay.
There's like
What?
something. Yeah.
There's a je ne sais quoi that we'll never be able to understand unless we're in a room, I think. Because I
No,
think
I
if you're to
believe
book a
that.
role out of school, that's like a full-time Broadway show. It's like a massive, like, it's really hard to do. So I'm
Yeah.
like, you simply must have like a, wow, star power, but we're not
Maybe.
seeing it because he's also Bach. Like, I'm sorry. That's
Well, what you
insane.
said about like it just being like a person who's like more normal than she's used to makes so much sense.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just like very interesting to think about because I feel like I've like as a kid grown up and been like, oh, like if I could just like meet this celebrity, they think I'm so cool because I'm normal. And like I feel like people often
I
have
think
that
that's
kind of
true.
like fantasy. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, that also
Maybe it
was
is
like
true,
a
but
trope too of like literally like
Yeah.
all the fanfics being like, oh my God, I stumbled into Harry Styles at a coffee shop and I like didn't know who he was and he like fell in love with me.
Yes. And that's
Like,
like melted my brain where I don't like really meet famous people. Like, but I feel like if I did, like, I wouldn't be able to just be like, oh, well, I know who you are, obviously. Like, you're Harry Styles. Like, I'd be like, what's your name?
no,
Which is
same.
insane. Like, that's
Yeah.
really, like, if I was Harry Styles, I'd be like, but you, like, you know who I, like, you do know who I, like, you do. Like,
Yeah.
because there's this, like, one, have you ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway? The show? Okay,
That
it's
sounds
like a
really
daytime,
familiar.
it was like a daytime TV show in, like, the
it sounds
2010s.
familiar.
It was an improv show, and it'd just be like they like do like little improv games, like make up a song or whatever. But I loved it, and obviously love comedy. There's a guy named Colin, oh, what's his name? Mockery, and he lives in Toronto. And like watching him growing up was one of the reasons I wanted to like be a comedian. And I'll see him at Christmas parties or whatever, just because he's like an elderly man who knows people that I kind of know. And like I can't deal. Like I pretend I don't know who he is to the point where it's rude because I can't handle like and the thing is like he's not famous. Do you know what I mean? Like it's not
Yeah.
like if it's like Anne Hathaway or like Emma Stone or Harry Styles, you're like they don't want to be bothered. I'm like he's not bothered. Like he's not
Yeah.
bothered. He would be
Yeah.
fine if I was like loved watching Who's Line growing up, but I'm like who's that? But I'm like I can't undo it. So I feel like if I met someone really famous, I just don't even know how I would act. Like I don't, it terrifies me.
Well, having like that image of someone in your head is like haunting kind of because I feel like if you like genuinely didn't care about this person that much and they're just like famous, like it would not be a big deal to go up to them and be like, "Oh yeah, I know you from this, but like, hey, nice to meet
Yes.
you." Like in like a obviously in like a normal context, like say somehow
it's
you
not
were introduced to
close.
this person, you know?
Like it's not like the
Yeah.
person, it's not like a love.
Yeah. It's just
But
like
it's
a
like
acquaintance type.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah,
No.
if like Camila was like in front of my face, I would freak out, you know? Like, and I wouldn't
Yeah.
know how to like, I would have to like find a way to be a normal person about it. But I don't
I
think I'd
know.
be able to in that same like context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. Like I'm lucky that I'm like sequestered in Canada most of the time where it's like if I'm ever seeing anyone, it's like they're being ushered somewhere else with bodyguards. I'm not like in LA seeing somebody at brunch. Like I don't think I can handle that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, like, my therapist was literally talking to me the other day about how her friend like lives in LA and she like ran into Luke Hemmings. And I was like, see,
That's
I
crazy.
couldn't, like, that could
No.
not be me. No.
I can't. Like, especially with those Five Sauce guys, like I was obsessed
I was
growing up.
obsessed
But
with them.
as an adult woman, I'm kind of like chill out. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's like the
Yeah.
wolves inside of me as an adult woman being like, you need to be humbled.
Yeah.
But like the child in me being just like rabid. So I just I can't ever meet any of them. I don't know how I'd act, and I don't think it'd be appropriate no matter what. Like it's just not good.
To ask if you were like, because you make so many videos about like books and stuff, were you like in that kind of like era of like book internet where like it was very like okay like Hunger Games, Harry Potter, Twilight, it was like popping off. Like I was just like curious if that also kind of like influenced you in like reading at all or like made you more excited about reading because I know that was like for a lot of people the thing that like started them in like just like book world. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's like what I was very much in that John Green as well. Like I'm kind of
Yeah.
putting together a video on John Green right now. I don't know. I always hate to say that because I'm always like, if I put it together and it's bad, then I won't do it. People get mad. They'll be like, we've been waiting for that video that you've talked about online 10 times. And I'm like, I know, but I did it and it's bad. But I really want to, especially because of like the new movie coming out. We're like, yes, Hunger Games, loved. I wasn't a Twilight girly as a teen, which is kind of strange because I'm a Twilight girly as an adult for sure.
No, same.
It's come back around. I had way too much just like internalized misogyny as a child. I really wanted to be different, and I really was like, Twilight's for girls and it's stupid. And now as an adult, I'm like, let's go. I don't care.
Yeah.
But I loved, like, I was really on Tumblr in a big way, and I just like loved participating in like, it's kind of stupid now, but like reader culture of being like, Hunger Games movies coming out there's only 2 months until we can that we can still, it's our little secret or whatever, like that.
Yes,
kind of thing.
yeah.
oh
Like,
my
I
God,
just
yeah.
loved like fan casting, and just like the communal aspect of it was so great, and just
Mm.
like books coming out, like that didn't really happen a lot. Like it was only for like later stuff, because like
Yeah.
Harry Potter was out, Hunger Games was out when I
Well,
read it.
I remember when like the last Harry Potter, but like the Deathly Hollows
Mhm.
like came out, and that was such a fun moment. Like I like bought it when it came out, and like it
Yeah.
was so fun, and like that like I just like missed that so much.
Yeah, there's
Yeah, I
not a
felt
lot
like
that anymore, like community
no,
wise.
it's not community, like it's personal. Like I love an Emily Henry romance, even though I'm like, it's not like, I can't be like, you've got to read it, but for something specifically for me that I love about it, and her new book came out, and I was like, I can't do anything on Wednesday. That's Emily Henry Day. Like I'm gonna be reading the book then. Like, but even then, it's just like a personal thing. Like it doesn't really. I'm sure it exists for teens, but I'm not a
Mhm.
teen. Like I know that there's that Good Girls Guide to Murder has like a massive fan base,
Oh
and
yeah.
the show's coming out, but like I'm not plugged in. Like there is like a nice thing of like, I remember also like people would just like read the Hunger Games at like lunch or whatever. Like I
Mhm.
loved
Mhm.
that. John Green was massive like for me, like when I read The Fault in Our Stars, because I was a little later, and I remember like that was crazy when
Or-
Turtles All the Way Down, which came out like
Oh, yeah.
2017. That one.
2017. I only know
Yeah.
this now because I've been working on a timeline. So I'm like, I've got
Okay,
this
yeah,
up
we'll
here
believe you.
somewhere. Like, I remember just being like, oh my God, like, I can't wait. Like, and that was so internet culture as well. Like, seeing those movies, it was so nice to like share that. I think that sometimes like I've been writing a lot more just for myself, but I find it really hard in some ways because I'm like, I would love to do that for someone else, but you can't like control that.
Mhm.
You can't like just be like, I think I'm gonna write something that's gonna change somebody's life. Like, you know what? Like, you can't, even though there's stuff like that I'm like, I am a reader. Like, I loved the other stuff, but like, I read because of John Green, which is wild to think about. Because I loved like Hunger Games and that stuff, but like, I became a rabid contemporary reader after like reading The Fault in Our Stars and Paper Towns and stuff like
Mm.
that.
Oh, Paper Towns.
So good.
They
It
were
did
so
not get
good.
did not get the movie it deserved.
No.
No.
The Fault in Our Stars movie was a crazy like cultural thing though. Like
Yes. Boom Clap by Charlie XCX.
Oh my God. Yeah.
That was
It's
like
crazy too because now like Charlie XCX like has a different like aura around her, but looking back and seeing her song in that movie is insane.
And she's like friends with Troye Sivan. Like, it's really wild. Like, if I went back and it was like, okay, I'm gonna tell you where everyone is, I'd be like, what? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, so Tyler Oakley Twitch streams, okay? And do you see that Connor Franta got in a fight with Joey Graceffa's ex-boyfriend online?
No way.
What?
Like, this
No.
Is it
week? Yeah.
Daniel Prada? That
Yeah.
They got in a
because
fight?
I remember they used to fight with James Charles, like online too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, this guy kept like, he just said he was talking with Joey Graceffa online, and he just said that Connor Franta is like the most boring person ever. And then Connor Franta like stitched it and was like, you keep talking about me. Like, why are you constantly talking about me? Like, and he said like, he was saying like, you're only known for being Joey Graceffa's boyfriend. If my crime is being boring, your crime is being irrelevant. Like, can you believe?
I can't
was
believe
like,
Connor
oh,
Franta
I know, I
said
can't
that.
imagine Connor
no, I
Franta
mean to
saying
be like,
something like
I would
that.
I would deactivate if Connor
Yeah.
Franta said that about me. Like, I would simply deactivate all my accounts. Like, I couldn't deal with that.
No, that's
To just be
crazy.
leveled by a comeback, a clapback from Connor Franta. I love
Yeah.
it.
That's so funny because I don't know, like all those YouTubers like from like Connor Francis time, sort of like him, like That's So Jack,
Mhm.
like I'm trying to think of who else, like and just like Gen X Pen, Andrea Russett, all those people, like they don't feel like real at this point, and it's interesting seeing them kind of grow up online and still making videos and how their content has evolved because I don't know, just like with Gen X Pen, like she's also like a Twitch streamer now. And it's just like very interesting because I'm like, oh, like your content was kind of like targeted for kids. So now it kind of has to like move into something else. And I think that's kind of fascinating.
Well, it's also the way in which like YouTube has shifted so much where it used to be like the planning that went into videos was basically non-existent. Like you would vlog, and I'm not complaining. Like I ate it up. Like I don't care.
Yeah.
But I'm saying like it is just a very different thing of like it used to just be like vlogging or oh well, my friend will come over who also has a YouTube account and we'll do like a chubby bunny or like a whisper challenge or whatever. But it wasn't like there was no focus on originality. There was no planning. You weren't providing a service beyond like existing, basically, and you were yourself and people came to watch you do it. But that also means that if people stopped being fans of you, they had no reason to stay, which is fine. But that just means like you just see a very steep fall off because people are like, oh, I don't really like, I love these people, but like, I don't really care what they're doing now.
Mm.
Whereas like now so much of YouTube is like commentary based, not all of it, but it's like, even with vlogs, it's like, I'm doing this thing in the vlog. Here's the content I'm providing, or here's a video essay, or I'm reacting to this, or I'm deep diving into this, talking about this thing. Like you're providing like an entrance level of like you might not know who I am, but you care about One Direction and you want to hear me deep dive into it. So even if you don't like me, you still might want to hear what I have to say. But then it's like
Yeah.
if you got on YouTube not doing that and you don't really know how to do that, at least if you Twitch stream, people will watch you play the video game. Like they're like, oh, well, I want to watch somebody play Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley or whatever. So like that's like built in a weird way. I feel like that's my theory on that, just because I'm always curious why like they don't. Part of it's probably also just like there's a massive burnout. Like I can't believe post-pandemic how many people that I love on the internet, even just in like the book space and people that I was friends with who were like, I'm quitting. I can't do this anymore. Like I don't want to. It's a lot. But I was always like, why do they leave? And I think that's also part of it of just being like, well, I didn't want to think of ideas. Like, that's not why I got into this. I got into this to just like mess around online. Whereas it's like,
Yeah.
I came in from like the book space a little bit where like, even if it was like vlogs, it would be like reading 5 romances or whatever. So that's how I started doing content. So that's just kind of how it makes sense to me, which is lucky. And it'll change eventually and I'll be irrelevant. But by then, hopefully I'll be doing something else. So it'll be fine. But it is like interesting how like, I'm like, yeah, well, what could you be doing? Like Tyler Oakley used to do like 1 video a week. That was him being like, I'm going to go through a magazine, or I'm going to like, I don't know, like do Edward 40 hands. And then the other one is just a Q&A like that.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to sustain a channel on that now.
The amount of Q&As people did.
Oh my God, yeah.
It's actually crazy. Like
And the
you
questions were always like the same questions like every
to
time. Like
sustain a channel half on Q&As is wild to think about now.
But it was just so real and people loved it so much because it was so real, I feel like. And I guess that's just taken a different form now, but I do think it's like a lot harder to find genuine content online, just in general.
Yes, definitely. I think like it was probably because celebrities like weren't doing that yet 'cause social media just started, so it was like nice to get to know someone online genuinely. That's why people probably like watched Q&As. You're like, I actually want to know what this person has to say because I'm invested in their life because I actually feel like I know them because it's a parasocial relationship.
Yeah.
Whereas like at that time, if you're a fan of Jennifer Aniston, you like don't know anything beyond what she tells People magazine. But now everyone does that. So it's like it feels fabricated again because it is being fabricated. Whereas before it was like when people were going online in like 2010 and doing a Q&A, they weren't doing it to be like, and then my audience will feel like they know me and I need to do this. They were just doing it. Whereas like now it feels like because social media marketing is like really taken off, it like everything feels calculated. But also then the other end of that is like, it feels like the more normal content creators who are genuine people are the people that are like doing stuff that isn't about themselves. You know, they're like, I'm going to, I mean, I never met Mike's Mike, but I love Mike's content. And that's not about him. It's like about other things, but it still feels more genuine than somebody like vlogging sometimes, which is kind of strange because he doesn't talk about his life, really.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I like wanted to ask, like when you like, so you like started making videos like about like in the book space, like kind of you said, but like when did you like, or what inspired you to like start analyzing like the different, like what different celebrities are reading and like all of that stuff? And like, did you like have any idea that people would like, that people would watch it so much that it would like blow up in the way that it did?
I like started doing those videos. Like the first video I posted on YouTube was reading Harry Styles' favorite books. And again, I kind of think it led to like, it came from being a fan where I knew from being on like, you know, One Direction Twitter and like posting videos about 5 Seconds of Summer, like you'll get X amount of people clicking on a video if you make it about somebody who people are fans of. And then if they find you and the video is good, then they maybe will stay. So I think that's probably why I started doing it, because I was also like, oh, this will be interesting. And I loved BookTube and watching it, but it felt like there was like a niche of like, you could like, it was just starting to happen where people were making videos that were more like concepty and not just like vibes, which I also love a vibes video, but everything at that point was like, here's a 50-minute reading vlog and I'm talking for 2 minutes of it or whatever, which is also great. But I was like, oh, I could do a different thing and that would be like my lane and that'd be fun to do. So I started doing that, and then I obviously had to like bolster other stuff around it because like it took me forever to make those videos. But it was fun because it was again like kind of tapping into that fanness of it all and like allowed me to be myself more because it wasn't about me. Like I could just like have fun and be like, this is crazy. I mean, also those earlier videos are kind of wild. Like the stuff that I said on the internet, I would never say now because I had no understanding of like hate or whatever. Like I would probably not say a lot of negative things about Harry Styles now just because I'd be like, the Harry stans are going to find me and they're going to go insane. But that's also kind of the beauty of like early videos is somebody being like, I'd be like, don't say that. Like that's, no. I think I said in the first video, like I made some reference to that rumor that like Niall's mic got turned down and Louis' mics got
I know what
turned
you're
down.
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like making a joke being like Louis' mic got turned down and it's like, well, it's not that good of a singer or whatever. Like as a joke. And it was nicer than that. Do you know what I mean? Like it wasn't me just saying that.
Yeah.
The girlies were not happy. And I wanted to be like, he's fine. Like respectfully, he's a millionaire.
Like
but
he probably
like,
isn't watching this. Like maybe he is, but
no.
like, yeah.
And even now, I'm like, I probably wouldn't do that just in the off case that like I don't want to hurt people's feelings. Like, and I think I understand that more now than I did then. Cause back then I was like, who's gonna watch this? And now I'm like, you never know. Celebrities online.
Yeah, that's also a
online.
weird thing to think about is like,
I'm like,
no,
I don't
they
want to hurt his feelings.
Yeah. No, I think about that too with like even like Reddit pages and stuff too, where I'm like, they're all on there, like they're lurking, and it's like people say crazy stuff on there.
Yeah. And it's just like, I think as I like do more stuff, I'm more like conscious of being like, I don't, even if I think it is funny and I do, you know, if people, I think we do need like people to make criticism. Like we have to have that. It's just the more I get into it, the more I'm like, I don't know if I want to be the person to do it. Where it's like, if they're a person, if it's somebody like J.K. Rowling, where I feel totally fine to like rip them to shreds because they've shown a lack of self-awareness that's like unparalleled, I don't really care.
Yeah.
But if it's just like a famous person where I'm like, well, they're untouchable, they shouldn't care. I'm like, yeah, but like I also, if I don't need to say it, I don't need to say it. It's fine. I think it's also just good for like the internet to try and not be as negative as possible. I'm already like kind of a negative person. So like I don't need to like seek it out more than I'm already inherently like, this sucks. I hate this.
Yeah.
I'm curious like which fandoms you think are like really intense in that way that you would get like really like attacked kind of for posting something about like just like saying the wrong thing in a video about like their person.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. I mean, I wouldn't really. I mean, BTS is an obvious one. I would just like never touch that. It's truly not worth it. Like,
Yeah.
That will cost you your life.
Literally.
like, and it's fine, and I don't need to take that on. I don't want to. There's a lot that I feel like are okay. I honestly think if I could talk about Harry Styles, I actually think that like as his fan base grows, like there actually is like a growing awareness.
Yeah.
I think Swifties have lost it a bit, and I am a Taylor Swift fan, but like
Yeah, we've lost
you need
it.
to be able to criticize. And I also like I wouldn't talk about Taylor Swift. Like people are like, we want your take on Tortured Poets Apartment, and I'm like, you don't. Like you don't. You think
Yeah.
you do, but you don't. Also like I think the other thing that's kind of insane is like not fandoms, but like haters. Like I made a video about Ariana Grande, and like the Ariana Grande haters, like the comments that I still get on that video, I always find so crazy. Because in that video I said like, and this is again, it's like the internet, like people are gonna disagree with me, and that's like the beauty of it, where I was like, yes, because I was doing a deep dive into her, and like when you look at her dating history, like there is a lot of like suspect overlap in relationships. We weren't there, we don't know, but there's a pattern, let's say. And I was saying like, yes, this exists, but I also think when we talk about the SpongeBob of it all, and they're saying she's not a girl's girl, I'm like, well, that's just a weaponizing, like you're just using that to be a misogynist. Like you're not saying that for real. You're just being like, she's not a girl's girl because I hate her. Like,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
not
people
And
true.
it's like,
hated
okay,
her
why do you hate her?
since the beginning
Yes.
of time.
You're
Like,
just
people have
waiting.
hated her forever, and they've just been waiting. And I'm so biased because I was on Ariana Stan Twitter, and I met her like so many times in my childhood. This is my
Yeah, I was-
Twitter for all of
I was
you.
like gonna say like a
But-
disclaimer. I was like, Brittany's like a huge Ariana. Like,
Yeah.
It actually makes me so sad because she felt like an extremely genuine person to me.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, I'm like getting too like worked up
No,
about
I
it.
agree. Where it's like,
But-
I think that people, especially with pop stars who are femme, like are waiting for you to mess up. Like they want you to mess up so they can now contextualize this hate as like a societal thing, as opposed to just being like, I don't like you, which is why people are calling her a homewrecker, because they want to not like her, but they have to use a reason that seems like they're ethical and moral.
Mm.
When we don't know what happened, it's not really any of our business. And what I said was basically like, did she have a gun? Like, she didn't force him to leave. He left his wife and his baby. That is fucked up. But what she forced, like, she didn't trap him. Like, he did a fucked up thing. But also, I have friends that have cheated. Like, I don't support it, but we're not perfect. And I honestly believe if we took stats, being like, every person who's like, Ariana Grande sucks, I'd be like, okay, let's see a stat list of every ethical, like, everybody makes mistakes, and that's what it is. But it feels very like mask off in a way of being like, if I can define her as not a girl's girl and a home wrecker and a cheater because she hasn't done, it's never about like anything else. Like surely there's actual problematic things you could talk about with almost any pop star. It's not about that. It's about like home wrecking this. And if I can say that's bad, then I'm good because I can define myself by what I'm against, and it's this. When in actuality, it's like you don't like her and that's okay, but like that's it. It's like the new annoying in a way. It's like when everyone was like, Rachel Zegler is not grateful about this, about Snow White, and she's trying to girl bossified and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, it's Disney. She's got no control. And also, you want to call her annoying, but you know you're not allowed. Like, that's what this is. And this is the Taylor Swift of it all, too. Like, there are real things you can say, but it's like people being like, oh, like it's trying to like contextualize it through like morals and ethics when it's like, you just don't like her. That's fine. But you want to like be like, no, it's because I hate cheating so much. And I'm like, well, I actually am not seeing that from you. Like, you just don't like her. It's like the John Mulaney of it all too. Like, I understand that he, like him leaving his wife when he, and then like having like a like an addiction issue and going through rehab and then getting with someone pretty quickly after rehab and having a baby is like messy. Get it. But it's like this, also you're being like, yeah, but he's like an addict and he survived. And if it's working for him, it's working for him. And we don't know everyone's life. It's like the haters that are now, I feel like, more rabid than the fans, which is kind of wild. Because I'm trying to be like, everyone's a person, right? Like, am I like, yes, love, like, messy timelines or whatever. It's like, no, but like, we don't get to decide like what makes a person good or bad unless they're like quite like objectively bad, like they're a warlord. You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel
Yeah.
confident being like, oh, I can be like, that person's bad. Because then people can be like, but these are the bad things you've done. Are you bad? And it's like, oh no. This is a slippery slope.
Yeah, it's like everyone trying to play like the game of like, oh, like I am like I have moral high ground, like I'm like a better
Yes.
person than you are, but it's not ever moral high ground for like the right reasons. Like you were saying, like all these celebrities are like have like actual problematic things about them that no one is like caring to bring up. Instead, it's like something in your personal life or like who you're dating or
Yeah.
like something dumb like that.
It's like the Amy Schumer of it all, because I do comedy and am a woman and so often people are like, I don't like Amy Schumer, do you? And I'm like, I don't, but I think that I don't for different reasons than you do.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
think you're mad that a woman isn't thin and is confident, and you therefore think she's annoying. It's not because of her political beliefs or like anything else. Like, it's
Mhm.
never that. It's always something else, which is what's annoying about it. Where I'm like, no, like, there's criticisms to be made. It's just that you're making the wrong one because you want moral high ground and you don't really care about like actual things that are good or bad that are complicated. You want to talk about like, is cheating bad? Like, what's happening here?
Well, also if
Yeah.
you like take these issues and you put them in like, okay, what if this happened and it was someone you knew in real life? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like thinking about it through that lens, like in general, is just like it's very reflective of people's, I guess, like how they choose to deal with conflict. And I don't know. I feel like, especially like in real life scenarios of someone doing something wrong, there is no reason for like anyone to like react that way. And a lot of the time, it is always just more reflective of what they want to be kind of like putting over someone. Um, and just like, I don't know, just like holding people to a standard a lot of the time. Like, obviously, like we should be doing that. Like, we should be holding people to standards, but like, it's not in a productive way at all. So then it's like, okay, if it's not in a productive way, then why are you doing this? And it's just because you like are trying to prove something to yourself or about yourself or like, I don't know, putting yourself in a
Yeah.
point of comparison, I guess.
I think also like especially when you think about like femme artists, people don't often like connect reputation to like actual money and job, where it's like if somebody was like, well, would you still be friends with someone if they slept with a married man and took him away from his baby? I'd be like, I don't know, it's never happened. I honestly would have to say a case by case basis. But if you
Yeah.
said, do you think somebody should lose their job because of that? I'd be like, no, like it's their personal life. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, also, especially like with artists, I mean, they're gonna be messy like they have been. Again, if there's actual problems, I get that. And we need to like, again, if somebody's like being a bigot, there's a difference between being a bigot and being messy in your personal life. It's the Phoebe Bridgers of it all too, of like something happened there. But at the end of the day, like I'm there for songs. And a lot of times people who are artists are very messy people and they think that they have to do that to make their art. And whether or not that's true or not is neither here nor there. But like, I'm not here to like push their personality. Like, I'm here to be like, I really like their music.
I wonder if also it's just like these people are like messy because they're just under this like crazy lens too. And like a
Yeah.
lot of it is just like sometimes it's being blown out of proportion, but sometimes it's just like, oh, like obviously this person is not going to be a normal human if they have like been under the public eye for this long. Like that is not normal for people.
And you're damned if you do, and you're damned if you don't. Like, if your relationships are all public and then there's a murky timeline, people call you a homewrecker. But then if you only date one person, like they'll just find something else. You know what I mean? Like, if you date one
Mhm.
person for a really long time, people will just be like, well, she's annoying. She's this. She's giving mean girl vibes, whatever. Or they'll constantly ask when you're getting married or what, you know what I mean? Like, you're always going to be criticized by the masses if you're under that level of a microscope. And that's part of the job. But also, I can understand how your brain would then be like, well, if you're going to criticize me, no matter what, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is partially why I believe, because like Bowen Yang, who's Ariana's friend, went on his podcast, Love, Lost Culture is his podcast, and he was saying like, the narrative is wrong and she's not correcting it. Like, what happened and people are saying what happened or different things. Like, she did not cheat, and he did, like, it didn't happen, but she's not correcting it, and it's infuriating. And I think part of that is, like, if you're a superstar, you're like, well, if I just am tired, I don't really want to talk about this anymore, and who cares?
Yeah, she can say anything and people just aren't going to
Yeah.
like people are always going to have something to say. I feel like she's like learned that throughout her career, specifically her like watching the like stuff that she's gone through like in the public eye is crazy. Like the whole like donut situation. Like I don't know
Well,
if
that
you
was
like
the other thing. I said the donut thing was funny because it's objectively fucking hilarious.
it was
It is.
I thought
It
it was
is.
funny
To
and
say
I
I
thought it was
hate
crazy because she
America and
apologized.
lick a donut.
Like,
as
come
far as
on, guys.
celebrity, like, I have a laugh.
Like,
Have
yeah.
a laugh. Like, I'm not saying you should go out and do it, but as far as celebrity scandals go, to go on Good Morning America and have to apologize for licking a donut, awesome. That's great. Like,
Well,
and everyone was like, it's actually that's small business. And I'm like, it's funny. Let it
Like,
go.
oh
Like,
my God.
not everything has to be like, well, actually, this horrible thing, the small business is going to suffer. I'm like, it's funny. Let it
also,
go.
the way that like the like my peers around me in school who had no clue like what was going on, like because I was so tapped into the internet and there were like
Yeah.
I would just be like in school like every day and like I would hear people talking about this and I was so invested in it that it was like such a weird thing for me. And I went
Yeah.
into school after she licked the donut and this girl was talking to me in school and she was super like Catholic and like she was like, yeah, I just like don't think it's right. Like, I don't know, like she should have like known better than that. And like, I don't know, like she was just like saying a bunch of things about it. And I thought it was so funny because it's like, okay, like you like, I don't know, it was just like really obvious that this person had been like picking up on the okay, like we're gonna hate women kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's like,
Well, also,
well, that's
Americans
actually
do
wrong.
not fuck with saying I hate America. Like, it is wild.
Yeah,
Like,
that's like the
yeah.
worst thing you can do. Like,
say
literally.
a slur. Like, you
Literally.
cannot say I hate America. It's like, it's another part of it too, being like, but we love America. Like, Jesus Christ, man.
I know you like also I did want to ask about like you like doing comedy and stuff too. I know you like mentioned it a little bit just like how you got started like in comedy and stuff and also like because I think like you talked a little bit about this with like Amy Schumer and stuff and I think like just being like a woman in comedy is like such like people just like I don't know like how is like your experience like with that been? Like do you feel like people will sometimes like hate on you or like give you shit for like a joke that like if a man said it like they wouldn't give him shit for or like do you know what I
For
mean?
sure. Yeah. I got started doing it. I started doing comedy when I was like 16, but like seriously started doing it when I was like 18. And part of the reason I did YouTube was because the pandemic happened. And that was like my main outlet. So I was like, I need to do something
Like you were doing stand up
creative.
like before then?
Yeah, stand up,
Okay.
sketch, and improv. I was doing it all. I didn't do a lot. I found stand up really scary until a couple of years ago. So that's kind of newer. But I was doing improv in high school and doing sketch in high school and then started doing all of those and stand up when I was like 18. There's like a comedy theater that's in Toronto and Chicago called The Second City. And I did like a conservatory there when I was 18. It was like a year-long program about different comedy stuff.
That's really cool.
It was a lot of fun. Like I met I met my partner doing that and like a lot of my really good friends. It was honestly awesome. I had a great time doing it. And I like work there now doing shows. So it's like great. It's nice because I think a lot of people are like, it's so hard to make friends in adult life. And I have like a built-in like meet new people all the time thing, which I love. I think it's really good for me because I'm also very like prone to isolating myself. So to be able to like, I can't to do this thing when everything else I do is like online stuff or writing and like alone is good. Or I would just lose the plot. Yeah, I find that like it's interesting. I find it hard to read books about women in comedy that are fiction and not written by comedians who are women because I find that like the criticisms are very 90s and don't deal with intersectionality in a way that doesn't really make any sense to me because it's basically hard to be a comedian if you are not a white man because it isn't always, but it's like audience based, basically. So there's like a lot of success in stand up for Black comedians because you are able to like, there's a storied history there and you're able to find an audience that understands your experience, right? Whereas when you think about queer people or women who have been also like locked out of those spaces, but also don't even necessarily attend comedy shows, you're like a woman or a queer person performing to an audience of almost entirely like men, which is kind of fucked. Like it's weird. So I find like I used to get really angry about it because I had a lot of friends who wouldn't even necessarily put as much work into it. But because they're like a nerdy guy, the audience immediately is like, we like this guy. Love him. So it was like frustrating to be like, I have to overcome this hurdle of proving myself before I can basically even do my job at all. Of like, I have to be funny out of the gate. I can't slow burn. There's nothing I can do here because I need to convince you basically immediately that I'm funny and you can trust me, to like bring you on a good ride, or you won't laugh. Whereas like you're just used subconsciously to laughing at men, period. And like people are kind of shitty, but honestly, like comedians, stand-ups can be fucked, but most of the time, if somebody's successful, they're not a misogynist. We don't really see that anymore. It's like audiences a lot. And there's like obviously gonna be like the Matt Rife, like alt-right crowd that's really shitty. But like the actual experiences that I've had have not been like bad with actual comedians. It's more just being like, I'm in this, I'll like do well, and then afterwards somebody will be like, you're really funny. And I'm like, you're saying it like you're surprised.
Yeah.
And it's my job. Like, and it makes me mad. Like, I used to get really angry at audience members a lot, which is like not constructive and like, who cares? Like, it really is fine. But of being like, I don't give a fuck if you think I'm funny. Like, I know way more about this than you do. Like, I have thought about this for years. And the fact that you think, because you're like a 50-year-old man, that your compliment matters to me is actually offensive to me. But then it's like, I simply need to let it go. I have a lot of baggage around that, like anger.
No, but
that
that
I'm
makes
like,
sense.
It does
Like,
make sense.
yeah, but I'm like, I need to live my life. Like, I've got to let it go. And people will oftentimes, like, if you're doing improv and you have to get stuff from the audience, they'll be a shithead to you because they think they can get away with it. But you can't yell at them. The man can be like, fuck off. And they'll be like, but you can't, you have to shut them down, but not be a bitch. Because if you're a bitch, then you lose. But if you don't shut it down, then you lose. Like, it's like this crazy social tightrope you have to walk constantly. Because also heckling is off the charts because of like TikTok. Like, people go to comedy shows now expecting that like it's going to be all crowd work. So people talk and yell out during the show constantly, which they never really used to do before. So
that's
they'll
so
just be like,
interesting. That's crazy that like, yeah.
Or to like see
Yeah.
like a difference after like TikTok.
Yeah.
Like that's actually insane because it's like so like leaked into like just our culture in general and like so formative for all of culture, but like the fact that like I don't know, it affects everything.
Yeah, it's really strange. It's like made everything a lot more individualistic, but I think that's also because of the pandemic. Like pre-pandemic, there was a lot of like you would do like a lot of like group stuff. Like people would do stand up, but they would also do like more collaborative things like sketch or like write a stand up show, but like with two other people. Like there was a lot more like working together. And then post pandemic, it makes sense that like in the beginning, you can't perform with other people. Like there's only allowed to be one person on stage. But I think also because of TikTok, like you do not see groups anymore. It's like people they do stuff on their own. Like it's really, really divided where it's like when I was growing up, I got into comedy like from like, yeah, Bo Burnham and stuff like that, but also just like random troops of people like posting videos on Funny or Die, like, and it'd be a group of 4 people or whatever. But now it's like if you're doing that, it's like one person doing it and maybe they collab with like some of their friends or whatever. But I also think it's ultimately a good thing because people are watching comedy like way more now than they ever were just because you're just like watching it on TikTok. And you can make money doing it, which is good for younger comedians. I mean, I don't know. People are very fatalistic about it in comedy, being like, it's over. And I'm like, well, it's just changing. Like everything changes. And I think being on the internet, you're like more used to that and being like, well, it's not over. Like it might be different, but it's not over. But also at the end of the day, like I think because I started seriously doing comedy a lot after the pandemic, after being online, and being online like melts your brain for criticism, where it's like I truly feel like you could put a gun to my head and I'd be like, I wouldn't care. Like I've just been through it, which is kind of a good skill to have, but I'm just like, I just don't care. Like you really can't affect me because I don't care anymore. But I feel like I get this anger because I feel for the people that are starting out that you will care. Like you're 18 and you're starting out. And it's really hard. It's also really interesting how like women's relationship with other women in comedy, because the space was so misogynist in like the 90s specifically. Like they're just, in my experience, there hasn't been like lots of room for like mentorship. Like if I've ever had anybody help me with my career, it's been other men, as if I'm a man. But it's been men because women were raised to be like, it used to be like there's one girl on the show and that's it. And also because the booker is a creep, how sexually viable you are is related to how much you get booked. And also because society is fucked, youth is connected to your sexuality. So it's like their brains have been, because if they've gone through like this horrible thing, you just don't feel that support in the same way because they've been like traumatized. But it's really weird to come up kind of standing on their shoulders because of the work they've done to make the space a better place. But there's still like an inability to like reach out and help because you've been traumatized by thinking that like if you're no longer the youngest person, then nobody wants to have sex with you, and your ability to have sex with somebody is how much you get booked and stuff like that. It's really messed up. Which is kind of, it's like weird. But for the most part, stand-up can be shit, but people are also nice. Like, I don't know. It's really hard to like make that comment now because so much of it is so divided. Of like, yeah, there's people that are like awful, the worst people you've ever met in your entire life. That are like bottom of the barrel. Like I've seen stand-up sets that I've been like, I'm going to leave. This is disgusting. Like I've never heard vile shit like this. And you just have to sit there and like not be a bitch about it. But also like those people don't succeed really.
Yeah.
Unless they're like Matt Rife and it's special. But you know what I mean? Like it's kind of, I don't know. That's a
but
very
it's still
long
so
winding answer.
frustrating. Like I
No.
like understand your frustration with that, and also thank you for like sharing about that because that's really
Oh, thanks
interesting.
for asking.
I feel like I don't know a lot about like actual like live comedy and like how that feels to be a woman in that like field. So yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm really also sadly like not surprised that it's like that
Yeah.
because it's just like every field, like it just feels like you're being put down. Like no matter what you say,
Yeah.
like it's stupid, or if you're like I don't know. There's just like no way to win in exactly
it's
the same
so
way that you're
frustrating.
talking about
Like
it.
that's where like this anger comes from. I always kind of like, I've joked recently because like there's certain things like do you know that like Netflix series like I Think You Should Leave?
Yeah.
I love that series, but like I was talking to my boyfriend, he loves it, and I'm always like there's certain sketches that I just can't get behind, and it's not because they're not funny, it's because I'm traumatized from doing comedy in university where like men think being loud is funny. Even though those sketches are funny, it's just that I'm bringing baggage to comedy in some ways that I can't undo, as we all are, of like anger. And that happens a lot in YouTube as well, just because like the algorithm prioritizes men, prioritizes white people, the whole shebang of it all, right? So you'll see people succeed quite simply because even though I'm like, I'm making better content. I'm making better content. And maybe I'm not, but in my brain, I'm like, I am. But like you said, it's in every single like area of creativity of just like this like need for then in comedy, my friends that are like, you know, queer or, you know, they're comedians of color, like they'll get an opportunity, but then they'll be forced to tokenize themselves. Or like I have friends that are like, I simply can't talk to white women this week. Like I've got an opportunity and there's going to be that conversation of being like, well, you know why? Or what, like, it's just, it's persistent in comedy and in YouTube and stuff. And it can be exhausting. Like when it builds up, the baggage builds up to the point where you're like, I can't do anything. Like I'm gonna scream. But I try to remind myself that like my therapist said this once where she's like, anger is an active emotion. It's better than feeling like despondent. And like feeling angry can be good because it makes you want to like change things or do things or put it towards other things. But like even I think I bring a lot of like baggage and comedy to YouTube just for like because the commentary space is incredibly male dominated. And like you're just gonna like and you just want to be like it's very comedy adjacent as well of being like we're nice guys. Aren't I so nice? I'm a nice guy with all my friends that are guys. And if I'm running a like you know what I mean, I'm doing a live stream and it's me and my guys. It's me and my guys, but we're nice guys. And you're like, right, but if you really think about it or whatever. But again, it's like it's not like wrong. It's like I'm bringing so much baggage to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, where it's like I have to let go. There's like a line from Legally Blonde the musical where she goes, I need to prove to everyone I'm serious. And then somebody else goes, you need to get to work. Like, you just simply need to focus on doing your stuff. And I try to like think about that because I'll get so lost in being like, but it's this. And it's like, yes, but like you being angry about it is not gonna like fix it. It's just gonna make you like seethe.
Yeah.
But oh, I seethe. Like I've gotten to the point where I just find it hard to work with men sometimes. Not always. I love men, but there are like elements of it that are, it's like impossible for me to fathom that experience.
Even when they're like quote, like good, like they're almost getting rewarded for being good just because
Yes.
they're being good. And it's the most frustrating thing ever because it's like, well, I'm not going to get rewarded for that. Like,
It's
why
fucking
are you?
aggravating.
And
I can't believe it.
and-
It's like marketable now, which is like very strange to see it on YouTube of being like, I'm a straight white man who is profiting actively because my audience is, let's say, probably primarily young teenage women who are in high school with people who treat them horribly, for sure. And I can be this representation of a good guy. I'm a really good guy. And you get to benefit from not being a shithead. That's aggravating to me, but it's not fair. Like this isn't like it's fine. Do you know what I mean? It's not the end of the world.
it's like
but
there's
it
nothing you
is-
can do about it, so you have to say it's fine. But
It's just frustrating.
yeah,
And again, it's like I worry about saying this because I don't want people to like hear it and be like, she's talking about blah blah blah. It's like not about individual people, it's about like this idea, right?
Like the culture in general.
Yeah,
like,
and
yeah,
it's
it's
just it
so
gets like
normal.
it's the consistency of it. Like this is why I feel bad when I think about people who are starting out doing comedy, how people quit because of doing this. So I think that it's the same thing I feel with YouTube of being like, you'll start, and I did this, and I think a lot of people do. It's like you start and you kind of feel like tall poppy syndrome of like, I'm killing it and everyone really likes me and I'm being authentic and whatever. And then like something will switch because it always does of just like people change how they feel about you or whatever, and that's fine. But it's hard to see that never happen for men. Like if a man gets canceled, it's because he's stolen money from his subscribers. You know what I mean? It's because his friend has horrible tweets. Like it's not because he seems mean, which is like what happens if you are a creator of color or a queer creator or a woman. Like, so it's strange.
Yeah. I feel like it
but it's
also circles
fine.
back into everything we were talking about just with like celebrities and like with like
Mhm.
Ariana Grande, with like I don't know. It's just like present everywhere and it's hard to not be angry about, but all you can do is just try to move past the anger.
Yeah, and also like I always try to remind myself, I'm like being a YouTuber is like one of the best jobs in the world. Like whenever somebody complains about it, it's like, but it's fine. Like
Yeah.
it's not that like
Mhm.
I'm complaining about it because of the persistent agony
But
of,
it's in
of
everything. You
oppression.
could complain about anything.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
saying. It's
literally.
nursing. Like I could be
So,
like, I'm a nurse and this is how I feel, whatever.
yeah.
But like it's fine. I mean, I switched my manager, you were talking to Sophie, who's just like a woman, and I'm like, oh,
She was really nice when I was emailing her.
love
She was
her.
sweet. Yeah.
It's like game changer to work with somebody who you can just be like, because I think she's like a year older than me, but it's just like somebody who like gets it and you can talk to like candidly and doesn't treat you a certain way, even if they don't mean to. And she was even saying, she's like, people get so mad when I point out like issues on contracts. Whereas like if my boss, who's a man, says it, they're like, oh yeah. But it's just like, I mean, it's everywhere, but it's so nice to share. That's really all you can do and understand that. Yeah, there's like nothing you can do about it, but it gets better the more you continue to work through it and try to make it better for other people and like pull the ladder down. Yeah, not pull it up, but like leave it down for other people of being like, hopefully when I feel really despondent, I'm like, well, I think that I do a good job of being like annoying woman representation online in the sense that like I'm not for everyone. My personality is not like in the online space. Like it can be a lot in some ways, especially when I was doing book content, because a lot of book content is like chill. So if you're looking for chill content and you find someone who's like, it's like a lot. But I can be like, I'm who I am because when I was a kid, I watched people who were confident in who they were and not worried about like people being like, you're loud, you're annoying, whatever. So hopefully I can forge the path for more people to be allowed to be annoying. And that's good. And I mean that nicely, but like, it's really crazy to me that some people are like, you're a lot. And I'm like, I am entertaining you. I know. Like, I know.
Like, that's the point. Like,
Yeah. It's one thing if we're on a date and I'm acting this way. Like, I get it. I'm, you know, dominating the conversation and talking about
either.
well, that's the
Yeah.
thing that's like, I feel like people really can't. It sucks that my proximity to a man kind of makes me Teflon online. But if people are like, no man's gonna be with you, I'm like, well, guess what? Huh. One has. So, like, it sucks that that's true, but it's like, when you get insulted online, it's this idea of being like, no one's gonna want to fuck you. And you're like, well, they do, so it's fine.
That was literally like Brittany on like one of our like we like clipped like something from like one of our episodes, and one of our like friends like Maddie like just like commented on it and just said something being like, these men are
This was
getting
on
so
TikTok,
upset or
by
for
the way.
something. Yeah.
Okay.
And literally like the first comment that replied to Maddie was like, oh, like you're not in a really like no one's gonna want to date you or like something like that. And it's like crazy that like what? Like
It's
what?
really wild that that is the first insult. But
Yeah.
it always it's the same thing as like, you know, if somebody's like, hey, you're cute, and you're like, I have a boyfriend, and they're like, bitch, ugly.
Yeah.
I don't want to fuck you anyway. And you're like, but you literally were trying to.
Yeah.
Like, you literally just were. Of it's like the persistent air of misogyny is this idea of like, the worst thing you can be is unfuckable. And that's why it's bad to age and all this stuff. That's why like the idea of a witch is so horrific, because a witch is ugly and lives alone and all this stuff. And you're like, but that stuff is weird, because you're like, I don't believe that. But surely if somebody said that to me, I'd be like, well, that hurts. That sucks to hear.
Yeah.
Well, it's just
But
people
it's really
attaching that
wild.
there's only value to you if you're in a like if you're with a man or if you're in a
Yeah.
relationship. And I think that it's like also just been so ingrained into our heads as women growing up that like you have like there's just like this pressure to marry. There's pressure to like date someone. And so it's just like
wild.
come up with us, where it makes a lot of sense why it's in all of us, but it doesn't make it any better.
It's crazy to think about, like, because I think that I was raised in an environment where that was never like constant. Like, I wouldn't think that I would think that way because my parents didn't really care, or you know, and all that stuff. But like, it's really wild. I was thinking about this the other day where I was like, I think the reason, and I don't agree with this, but because I loved being single too, like I love being alone. But it's like my success as a person, I feel like so much to other people is defined by the fact that I am in a long-term relationship with a man, which is kind of insane.
Crazy.
Because if it was a woman, wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Useless. Why be in a relationship if it's not gonna, why? It's not worth it. But it is kind of wild to think like, it immediately shuts down like a massive criticism of people being like, you're ugly and no one would want to be with you. And then you're like, girl, somebody does, even though it's like, that actually shouldn't be like, the fact that I'm like, actually they do, so it's fine. It's supposed to be like, no, my like me having a relationship is not like indicative of my worth as a person. Like, it's really wild to think about, like, and realize that as an adult, being like, that's a success in my life.
Yeah.
Like, that's fucked. That's a success, as opposed to just being like a good thing that I get to enjoy because I like to be with someone and I think that they're a good person. It's like, no, you're actually doing good as a woman because you're fulfilling the duty. But it's really wild to think about. Like, it's really fucked. Like, we're trapped.
Yeah.
I'm also just thinking about how like this is gonna get clipped and they're gonna be like, they're never gonna get married, like they're not like, you know what I mean? Like,
literally.
I feel like it's gonna backfire.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's the only thing they have. Like, they don't have another thing to say. It's kind of wild. It's also like ugly. And I'm like, face reveal. Face reveal. Let's see it. Let's see the reveal. That are men, I'm always like, it's bad for y'all. Like, it's different, but it is like, it's not good for anyone. We've really created a system that sucks. Like, it's just, I don't know. I would hate to be a man. Like, I would really hate it. Like, I see so many people like learning to be friends in a real way in their late 20s, which is, I don't know how I wouldn't have made it this far if I didn't know how to be friends with people. To
No,
find
I
like a
get
kinship
crazy.
with somebody in a bathroom that's
Yeah.
somehow like more real than like some people who have been conditioned to like be under the prison of masculinity will ever feel. Like that's why like everyone's dad doesn't have any friends. Like it's kind of crazy.
It is like boy friendships are like not like I like would not be able to do it. I'm like, no wonder you're all so like messed up and don't know
No.
connection. Like this is why.
Well, it's
this
honestly
is-
just like sad because it's like, oh, like more than anything, I think it just makes me feel bad for them. And it like is funny because
Yeah.
then we're like, yeah, we'd never want to be like a man. And that's like such like a sad thing because it's like maybe they want to be girls. And maybe
I
that's why
think
they're
they
so
do.
angry at
They
us.
do.
That's why they're
Yeah.
mad.
That's why they're
No.
mad. Yeah.
And that's why they get mad at the stuff like the tall guys are hot or whatever, of like they want they want to like be a girl. Like they want to be able to like have the more in which we have like these kind of like inside jokes, and this is the like villainization of gossip and all these different things, and this idea of like, I mean, even though obviously we love women in STEM and stuff like that, but like humanities and communication are very much femme coded, of like they're so fucking mad that they can't communicate the way that we have been socialized to communicate.
Yeah.
Like they're so mad about it. That's why no one can write a fucking email. Like they don't know how to connect and they're trapped
Yeah.
by it. So when we're like, ha ha ha, it's a joke, that guy's short or whatever, they're like, what's happening? And you're like, yeah, we talk. Like it's just kind of a thing we do. It's
Yeah.
a joke. But like it's really wild to think about. I feel bad for them. I do. I think it's getting better. But also I'm around like people in the arts who are healing at a much more rapid rate. We were on
Yeah.
a train the other day, me and my boyfriend, and this guy sat down across like on the other aisle from us, and he was like, I hate university. There's so many soy boys. And my boyfriend, who's like a vegan communist, is like, oh, I'm about to get killed. I'm going to get killed by this military man. And I was like, I
Yeah.
forgot people are like this. Like I
Yeah.
really am in
No.
a bubble
No,
of like the
we
most
We talk
offensive
about this all the
thing.
time. Yeah. Like
is
how we
like-
feel
so
like
like
we're in a
that too.
bubble.
Like at
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
just being in like Philly and like being in like
Mhm.
such like a very like concentrated like arts area. Like there's like all these people like just doing creative things, and like a lot of the boys are like femboys, you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
I identified as a lesbian in high school because I hated every man I was around, and I was like, I am a lesbian. I am. And then I got to my adult life in the city, and I was like, wait a minute, I'm not. But it is like when you're
It's
surrounded
like,
by
why
that
does this boy
persistent.
look like a girl? And why do I like it?
Wait, I didn't know they could do that. Okay. But it was like literally that of like when you're surrounded by that kind of man, you're like, well, not for me. They're not for
Yeah.
me. And then you
Yeah.
like actually meet like sensitive, lovely men, and you're like, oh, I could try it. Like, but it is weird to be like, oh my God, I know if I like leave the city confines, I'm gonna be like, what's happening?
Yeah.
I don't like it here.
I think we're kind of out of time. So we're gonna wrap
God,
up.
Everything you
Thank you.
just said was so well like put together
But,
into
yeah.
It was
words.
a lovely time. What
great.
a lovely convo. Just
Thank you.
Fifth
I'm
Harmony
so
fanfiction to the oppressive structures that bind us
Literally.
all.
that was like we tried doing like a
Hmm.
solo episode, like just us two, and we like we're gonna talk about like our stand stories, and we literally just started talking about like
Yep.
yeah, that
And it
stuff.
just
so
always gets there
connected.
somehow because it's in
Yeah.
everything.
It's in
It
everything.
does.
So I don't know if you know about the film Quaker, Josh Ovalle, allure of that community of the internet, but we have a goal of getting Josh Ovalle on the podcast.
Okay.
Kind of our thing.
Yeah, Josh
so,
Ovalle, please be a guest on a podcast. Also,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
we're
do know Film
having-
Quaker, which is kind of okay. That's okay. I know.
Yeah, that's
I know
Josh.
this.
That's Josh.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're having all of our guests recite a little something to get him on the podcast.
Great.
So
Okay,
just
I'm happy
repeat
to
after
help.
me. Thank you.
Okay.
Say I, and then state your name, and then any credentials that you have, like you know, like your
YouTuber.
YouTube, yeah, YouTuber or One Direction stan, like anything like that.
Great.
Hereby request Josh Ovalle for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh, be a guest on the podcast. We miss you.
Josh Ovalle.
Yes.
Okay. I, Carly Thorne, former Fifth Harmony stand, and Shawn Mendes' best friend, hereby request Josh Ovalle for collaboration with the Internet is Dead podcast. Please, Josh, be a guest on the podcast. We miss you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'll get him.
I need that for my reel. I gotta have that.